description of how we got our modern day Robespierres from noted scientist J.P. Sears. Let's take a listen.
Hi, welcome to the Science Channel. From an evolutionary perspective, woke people are the strongest, most capable form of hominoids history has ever seen. They're superior human beings. I'll explain what makes the woke apex predators on top of nature's food chain, but first, you have to understand, woke people didn't just appear overnight. In simple terms, evolution is what we do at a genetic level to win the competition of survival against other forms of life in nature. Now, evolution takes time, so to take a look at the woke's earliest human ancestors, we need to rewind the clock back about 10 years to the pre-Paleolithic era. Back then, you had a primitive people known as Homo sapiens. These were a type of hominids who survived using primitive skills such as strength, bravery, intelligence, and productivity. And interestingly, their species only had 2 genders. Then midway through this era, just after the world ended because of climate change according to Al Gore, the Homo sapien developed into Homo sapien justicus, or commonly referred to as social justice warriors. They were the first pre-woke ancestors who originated online hatred. It's believed they understood fire, and they also learned how to make weapons out of keyboards. And they began mating primarily with their own hands while staring at computer screens.
Yes.
That led us to the current Paleolithic era that created the conditions for the Homo sapien non-binary woketicus to develop and thrive, or commonly referred to as the woke. They're a very advanced phylum of people who have evolved to shed what are now unnecessary prehistoric qualities like gills, large canines, and self-responsibility. And along with developing the ability to have an inability to tolerate even the slightest bit of discomfort, they've also evolved to develop 72 genders. Now, when we've studied the fossilized evidence of primitive people, we've discovered strong evidence that suggests they did all their thinking in their brains. Whereas the woke carry around additional brains in the form of devices like phones, tablets, and TVs, which is where all their thinking comes from.
All right, so to check this out, we're pleased to be joined again by Saad. He's an evolutionary psychologist and professor in the John Molson School of Business at Concordia University, host of the YouTube series The Saad Truth, and author of a book that you should pick up if you haven't, The Parasitic Mind, How Infectious Ideas Are Killing Common Sense. Thanks for joining us. I know you say that, we don't exist outside of our biology, even though you're an evolutionary psychologist. So, is J.P. Sears, does he have the evolution right here on the woke? Do we have God?
Hey, God, are you there?
Do we have God?
Gad, not God.
Yeah. Oh, or God.
Is anybody listening?
Oh, God, are you listening? I feel like George Burns. No, yes, no. All
Maybe.
Right. We'll take a break after that exhaustive setup and see if we can get Professor Saad on the phone.
Listen to podcasts of Dan and Amy from the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Honey, what are we going to do with your grandparents' old coins and jewelry?
I'm pretty sure they're worth some money.
You've been saying that for years.
Okay, how about PGS Gold and Coin? They're the best when it comes to selling family valuables.
And you know this because...
PGS, when it comes to your valuables, they're the best.
Do that again.
PGS, when it comes to your valuables, they're the best.
Isn't that the place Jeff sold his grandmother's jewelry when she passed?
Yep, he checked out pgsgoldandcoin.com and found tons of positive reviews. He was blown away by how much he got. Do you? Oh, you're already on the site.
Almost. pgsgoldandcoin.com.
PGS Gold and Coin, the upscale way of selling your coins, jewelry, diamonds, and collectibles. Family owned and operated for over 14 years. Rated A+ by the Better Business Bureau, now with 4 Chicagoland locations. And they make house calls. 888-416-2701 or pgsgoldandcoin.com.
PGS. When it comes to your valuables, they're the best.
Every family has been touched by an illness or disease that could have benefited from more medical research. However, did you know that most nationally known research organizations that receive annual donor support either use or advocate for the use of embryonic stem cells and aborted fetal tissue in research? The John Paul II Medical Research Institute, a nonprofit research organization located in Iowa, is opposed to such immoral practices and utilizes only adult stem cells to conduct ethical research in the hopes of discovering new treatments and cures. To learn more about their novel research in the areas of neurodegenerative diseases, rare diseases, cancer, vaccines, and more, and to support their efforts in finding cures while also upholding the dignity of all human life, please visit jp2mri.org. That's JP, the number 2, MRI.org. Please join them in the fight to promote ethical medical research.
AM 560, The Answer.
All right, let's try this again, even though our little bit was ruined.
It's okay. People heard it.
Oh, Gad, are you there? It's me, Margaret. Gad, Saad.
Can you hear me?
Yes, okay, we got you. All right.
All right. So first, let me say hats off to the grasshopper who apparently lifted my brilliant satire. Well done, grasshopper.
What is mocking perhaps the best way to penetrate the consciousness of more people about these Jacobins?
I think that certainly it is one of several persuasion tools that we could use. This is why when dictators want to get rid of competitors, they don't go after the guys with the big muscles. They go after the ones with sharp tongues and big brains, because there is nothing worse to an ideology than to mock it to oblivion. And so satire is a fantastic tool to use.
A critical race theory is just a right-wing boogeyman. We're playing boogeyman politics. Us, we conservatives, I'm just referring to myself. I'm just playing boogeyman politics. Same thing goes with all of this cancel business. People aren't really being canceled. Anecdotes, the plural of anecdotes is not data, Dan. This is not really happening. This is not a cultural phenomenon. This is what luminaries like Charles Blow at the New York Times are telling us.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Look, I'm here since the last time that we spoke, I was the target of a cancel attempt. So let me just briefly tell you about it. So in April, I was speaking at an event organized by the Jewish Public Library. And I am a Lebanese Jew who escaped the Middle East. And so the Lebanese Jew speaking at the Jewish Public Library was going to be canceled by progressive Jews who thought that I was really, really scary because, I had appeared in front of the Canadian Senate in 2017 to talk about the transgender bill. And so I was, a hate monger. When that didn't stick, they then tried to argue, well, I've criticized BLM and CRT, and so therefore I must be hateful. So they kept shifting the goalposts to try to find a way to get me canceled. But to their credit, the Jewish Public Library refused to cave in. The event took place and no one got hurt.
Well, did any of them stay and actually listen to what you had to say? Or
I don't
did they
know.
Just bark and then leave?
So I don't know if the blue-haired people actually came to my talk, but had they come, they would have found out that they might have actually agreed probably with everything that I said. So I couldn't tell you if they were there or not. But what I do know is that post my talk, there were no complaints. So apparently I was able to pull it off.
No, but you live another day.
But again, as an evolutionary psychologist and professor, speak to this idea. I was making fun of it, but it's a real thing, that speech is violence, that you say something that I disagree with, you're hurting me, you're physically hurting me. I don't feel safe, Gad.
Yeah, so this is so in the parasitic mind, I talk about the homeostasis of victimology. And let me just explain this because some of the people might not be familiar with the term. So if you look at your thermostat, it's a homeostatic system, right? You set the thermostat at 70 degrees, and then it takes a reading, and depending on whether it's cooler or hotter than 70 degrees, it fixes it. Well, our brains and our bodies are also made up of homeostatic systems. So I've taken this principle and I argued that at the collective level, we have sort of a thermostat that we set the level at which we accept that society is racist and bigoted and Islamophobic and transphobic. Now, when you can't find any such instances, you simply redefine what it means to be racist and bigoted and misogynistic so that you could always achieve that set homeostatic level, right? So if you don't have any rampant sexual assaults on campuses, you simply redefine it to be, well, if a guy leered at you or catcalled you, that's a form of visual or linguistic rape. So we just redefine terms so that we can always prove that we are nasty and evil.
Something else, too. This was brought to us by Professor Frank Ferruti. You may know him, University of Kent, out over there in the UK. He wrote a piece for Spiked Online about the culture war. And I think he makes an important point here, and this again goes to the mentality, so probably something you can comment on intelligently as well, which is the idea that this is an all or nothing proposition for these woke warriors against Enlightenment values, that this is not trying to, find some common ground, trying to move the needle a little bit. This is all or nothing. That's the mentality of, it is of a religious fervor.
Oh, it is. I mean, it's a form of, secular quasi-religion. So in actual religions, you have revealed truths, right? Muhammad flew on on a winged horse to the moon, and anybody who contests that, depending on where you are, should be severely punished. There's no evidentiary threshold that I can offer to contest that religious narrative. Well, the blue-haired woke people have the exact same mindset, right? There's a set of principles that are simply revealed truths, a priori truths, and no amount of scientific evidence is going to alter that reality. So it is a form of religious thinking.
Do you think? Do you think there's a silent majority against cancel culture that maybe will come forward at some point in time?
There's a massive silent majority. That's why I keep imploring people. So in Chapter 8 of The Parasitic Mind, I repeatedly implore people to activate their inner honey badger. And what I mean there is that, the honey badger is an incredibly fierce and ferocious animal. Even though it's the size of a small dog, it could withstand an attack of 6 adult lions. Wow. So people have to be fierce in defending their principles. Regrettably, cowardice, I think, should be added as an 8th deadly sin. Most people are cowardly, they're apathetic, they diffuse their responsibility onto others. But the reality is, Amy, that the silent majority hates this stuff. So if they can somehow find their spine, go from being invertebrates to vertebrates, in other words, they have a spine, and if we all speak in unison, we'll get rid of the bad ideas of the blue-haired people by Tuesday.
Well, and the other thing, too, that there needs to be recognition of, it seems to me, is that the silent majority is choosing to be silent at present. That choice will soon be taken away from them.
Very true. And not only it'll be taken away from them, the way they will instantiate their indignation in the future won't be peacefully, but it will be in a violent way, right? So we could either solve the problem today peacefully through, the battle of ideas, or if you keep telling people, so take, for example, you're white supremacists all day long, you're racist because you have a particular skin hue. Good people are not going to tolerate being told that, or certainly not tolerate having their children being taught that about themselves for long. So in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, there'll be a backlash, and it won't be as peaceful as if we were to win the battle of idea today.
Yeah, no, there's one of the other criticisms that is leveled as well is about critical race theory in particular. But I guess it goes for all iterations of identitarianism. You just don't understand. These are intellects, deep thinkers like Ibram Kendi, Robin DiAngelo. These are superior thinkers. You don't know what conflict theory is, and so on and so forth. Ileana Redstone, who's a sociology professor at University of Illinois, I thought she had one of the best lines on conflict theory, from which critical race theory, intersectional theory springs. Conflict theory looks into the room of social problems and shines a giant spotlight on a single aspect of the human condition, yet leaves the rest of the room dark. So no one is saying we can't have a conversation about income inequality, about stratification of classes, so to speak, even in the West, or that we can't have a conversation on race. Oh, finally have the conversation on race. That's all we talk about, or anything else. But it's that I think she has it right when it just shines a spotlight there, just in that corner of the room, and leaves the rest of the human condition dark. And that should be someplace nobody wants to reside.
And so let me build on what she said, and I'll put it in maybe more formal statistical terms. So when you're trying to predict some phenomenon, and you identify, say, 5 predictors that might predict that phenomenon, you can actually statistically calculate how much weight does each of these predictor variables carry in explaining the phenomenon, right? Mm-hmm. So, for example, if there is a gender wage gap, it might be due to misogyny, but it might be to 73 other predictors that actually carry much greater variance in explaining that prediction. So she's exactly right. You're taking a multi-causal system, and you're always reducing it to one variable. So from multi-causal to unicausal, that's not how reality works.
do you see a safetyism, the out of an abundance of caution, turn yourself over to the vagaries of the state crowd? Do you see that as another manifestation of this identitarianism?
I think, if you're linking it to COVID, I think it just reflects that, most people are just mindless sheep. I mean, one of the, the reason why heroes that stand up against the crowd are then lionized is precisely because it's not the default value of most humans to put their necks out and say, no, I'm not going to do this. Most sheep, you tell them to turn left, they turn left. You want them to turn right, they turn right. And so I think to me, it's not so much a question of, identity politics when it comes to, say, COVID. It's a function of the fact that people are more than happy to be told what to do, and they acquiesce quietly.
Mm-hmm. Gad Saad, he's an evolutionary psychologist, professor at the John Molson School of Business at Concordia University. The YouTube series, The Saad Truth, the book, as he was describing, The Parasitic Mind, How Infectious Ideas Are Killing Common Sense. Professor Saad, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
This is a metaphor for your business's journey. Sometimes it feels like the course keeps changing right before your eyes. Whoa! And in order to maneuver it, you need an expert by your side. That's what Dell Technologies advisors do. They have the tech solutions you need to help you get out in front and stay ahead of the game. Whew. For advice on solutions like XPS 13 laptops powered by Intel Evo platform, call an advisor today at 877-ASK-DELL.
Research shows that people remember radio ads with a